quiet moments before the world wakes up. There's a place where pain meets peace, where every breath feels like a prayer and grief stands still. We carry the weight of what was and search for meaning in the smallest things. And sometimes all it takes is one moment to remind us we're still here, still healing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I'm the host of this podcast. And yes, we are your number one podcast for this comes in between with some amazing people out here changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. Now, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to say, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And most importantly, this is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, guys, help me welcome my next guest to the show, Miss Lynn Lewis, to the show. Hi, Lynn. How you doing?
Hi, Tony. I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. Now, before we get started, introduce yourself to the audience. So tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Okay, sure. Well, my name, as you see on the screen, is Lynn Lewis. I am located in the eastern part of the U.S., actually in Virginia on the East Coast. And I am an author, speaker, writer. I am certified grief coach and educator, and I am the chief empathy officer for Destined to Thrive Grief Coaching. And what I do with that is I get to support adults who have experienced the tragedy, but they have come to a point that they know that that impact is going to be a part of their lives for the rest of their lives, but they want to continue to live meaningful, purposeful, and impactful lives. So I come alongside them to help them figure out how best to do that, and it's at their own pace because this thing that we know as grief is individualized. It's a universal occurrence, but it's individual to each person. In addition to supporting people that one-on-one, I also host a couple of workshops, I call them mini workshops that I have created, one around the stigma of suicide loss and the other around the importance of practicing self-love. And so that's a little bit about what I do. And I'm a tea enthusiast, so I love having a chat and a cup of tea, virtually or in person with a friend, someone I just met, or a colleague. So have a cup of tea with me one day.
Hey, all you got to do is let me know when. I love a good cup of tea and a great conversation. Now, you
Yes.
know, I do enjoy those. You know, as we begin to mature in life, we start to get the little grays and everything. It's just, it really is. It's the simple things that matter.
It really certainly is. So.
Makes everything right. Let's talk about. I want to talk about grief a little bit. Grief
Okay.
is very individual, and I pretty much found out, and I didn't know what they overthinking it or something. But what grief is very, very selfish. What I mean by that, those who are grieving don't understand that when your grief shows up, it wants your full attention. It's like the little nagging kid that's on your leg that wants to hold on while you're walking and everything, saying you're going to pay. It throws a temper tantrum, like you're going to pay attention to me, right? I mean, I joke about it and everything, but there's a truth that comes along with that, and I could be wrong about this, but I want to get your thoughts and opinion. I think most of the time people don't know how to lean into their grief and allow themselves to properly grieve because of the stigmas that are around it. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I had not heard the term that you use as that grief would throw a temper tantrum, but I often say that grief is a bully. and it just shows up when it wants to show up. Those emotions just show up, and but I do agree with you, Tony, when you say that it seemingly people don't know how to lean into their grief, and that's one of the things that I help people with or attempt to help them with by saying, um, give it its space when it shows up. Give it its space, and because it's those emotions that are going to show up, and whatever I talk to other people about, it's from my lived experience or from persons that have shared their stories with me, and I have permission to share them. But yes, I say lean into them, because the longer, and I found this for myself, the longer I try to fight it or dismiss it, um, it keeps showing up, as you said, like that nagging child that keeps tapping you on the leg, or tapping you on your shoulder, or calling your name. So yeah, so learn to give into it. What I also say though, if you find yourself staying there too long, that those emotions, um, those thoughts, if they are constant, then that's when I suggest that maybe you need to talk to your doctor, your therapist, your grief coach, your grief buddy, your pastor, someone, if you find yourself just always stuck there and you don't want to be there. Because the other thing, Tony, is I have the thought that some people, they want to be there. They're not ready to move. So I don't judge them. But for those who um, find themselves wanting to move, wanting to do different, feel better, then yeah, give them space. They're gonna go away. Just give them space. Once they know they have your attention, they'll settle back down until another time.
This is true. This is very true. And I love that. I love that because, as being a student of grief myself,
Mhm.
I love the many different areas that it can go down. And I think that's what fascinates me the most, right? Because it can affect so many different things. And a lot of times people don't even understand that, right? That this life is full of grief.
Mhm.
And just because something that you may think is so simple, such as losing a job, can have the same effects on you as losing a loved one.
Yes.
So, and I don't think people really grasp that. Hey, salute, my man. Hey, happy to see you here today, brother. Thank you. So, I want to talk about some of the stigmas that we do have around grief. And what can we do to change the narrative, aside from having meaningful conversations, opening up the doors for people to be comfortable?
Well, a few thoughts come to mind as you made that statement. Um, I think keep having these conversations, because what I find is that people may not say anything. They may not send you a like. They may not respond to a message. They may not say that they are watching your podcast or your live on replay, but it's making a difference. And so I believe that we who are, as you say, students of grief, that we just need to continue to do what we do. And when we find ourselves getting tired or find ourselves feeling like nobody cares, then that's when we reach out to each other. Hey, to reach out to a Tony, or reach out to a Lynn, or reach out to, someone, another student of grief, to say, I don't know, I'm tired, frustrated, whatever the case may be. But we have to keep doing it, because again, from my own lived experience, people that I don't have any idea that they see me, that they hear me, and then I may run into them, at church, at the grocery store, just wherever, and they'll say, "I'm watching you. Or keep doing what you're doing. You're helping people," and I go, "Oh, you see what I'm doing?" I have no idea. So that's why I've committed to Just keep doing it. And the other thing that I am not afraid to do anymore, Tony, is to ask people questions. I say if someone opens the door, it would be rude of me not to go in. And so, if someone, because I'm a mental health first aider as well, so if something piques my curiosity, of my, I call it my discernment meter goes off, then
Mhm.
I don't have a problem asking, how are you really feeling? What's going on? Are you feeling suicidal? Those types of questions.
Mhm.
And so that's what I think we just have to keep doing.
I want to talk about that a little bit, right? Because that seemed, um, let's see, I want to talk about how things progress from, because I've been doing this 6 years, right? And you've been doing this a little bit longer than I have. How have things progressed from the time that you started up until now? Because it almost seems when I first started, a lot of stuff really wasn't talked about. Now on social media, now we can go and we can find support groups all over the place. What changed? How
Well,
has it
I
progressed
think,
for you?
and we've been on this journey about the same amount of time, because my son would be deceased 6 years early next month, so it's been about the same amount of time. I
Mhm.
think what changed, this is again me, my lived experience. COVID happened shortly after, the pandemic happened shortly after we started on this journey. So that just changed the trajectory of life. Celebrities talk about stuff. For some reason, we kind of think, oh, it's okay to talk about it. And then again, going back to people like you and me being vulnerable,
Yeah,
and but not being judgmental, giving people permission to talk, if they want to, or not, or just being able to know that they have a safe place, whether it's a physical place or whether it's a place, a non-physical place, just knowing that they are heard, knowing that they are seen, and allowing people to just speak their minds, because there's a lot of anger, a lot of angry people. And the other part is, I think now that I think initially we would, and sometimes we still do, when we hear the word grief, the first thing that comes to mind is death. But the more we educate our grief avoidance society, that, like you mentioned, a job loss, that can cause all kinds of emotions, pet loss, um, separation of children from parents when children go off to college, or even friends. If you've been had a good close friend and now they move to another city, another country, the dynamics of the relationship changes. So when we think back to um, a loss being that thing or that person that we no longer have access to, that thing or that person that we thought a lot of, that person that we loved and cared about, that we don't have access to them and never will, then that's what we're grieving. Those emotions are behind that loss. And so I really think knowing, or really talking more about grief, is not just about death.
yeah.
um, I think that has made a big difference.
I love that. I love that. I want to get your thoughts and opinions on death cafes. And the reason being, because I host a death cafe myself, and what I have seen that when people are given the opportunity to talk about their fears in life, right? Understanding some things like the importance of having a plan and the reasoning behind doing those things. Is there anything else that we can add to death cafes to encourage people to go into support groups of finding one-on-one individuals like yourself and like so many other people that I know out here in the world that are doing some amazing things, but they're having a hard time reaching these individuals? Is there a way that we can work with these individuals to bring those resources to those death cafes, while we're encouraging them to not only grieve but to surround themselves with people that know what they're going through.
So talk to me first a minute about deaf cafes because um, I've heard about them, but I've never participated. So tell me a little bit about that. I think I know, but tell me.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a place where people can come, have food
Hmm.
and snacks and things like that, and it opens up the doors for people to have genuine conversations about what their fears of life. So a lot of people, young and old, with the society that we live in now, there's a lot of fear that we're maybe jumping off. There's a lot of things going on with human trafficking. People, I
Hmm.
mean, people are doing some really crazy stuff out there, right? So it opens up the doors for people to talk about real life situations and how it's affecting them, and what
Okay.
their thoughts are around death, dying, and grief. And then, we normally try to talk to people about the importance of having a plan. And what I mean by that, you know, um, we see life in a different way. We know that eventually you are going to transition out of this world. Now, what
Hmm.
about the people who are left behind you? A lot of times, if they don't know where these things go, it ends up in a fight. It ends up in a lot of confusion, family members being mad at each other, right? So we encourage people to eliminate that by sitting down and coming up with a plan of where, if these things, the unfortunate was to happen, where does these things go, right? That way it's right there. It's written in a certified document. Once you get done, you can always go in and change it, but it also gives you the opportunity, because we encourage people to say, now that you have this out the way, let's work on living your life. So we encourage people to go out there and build a bucket list, and then we go out there and help them achieve those goals, right?
So,
Yeah,
so the Deaf Cafe is really for the persons that they have not necessarily experienced the death or loss, but they have it on their mind and they're wondering what, like you said, they're concerned about maybe life's events and stuff like that.
mhm.
Am I hearing that correctly?
Well, it's a mixture of both.
Oh,
So you
okay,
may have people that come in who have lost loved ones,
okay,
and they're just looking for a community because they may have some
okay.
questions as well. And we surround themselves, and we put other people in there who may not have experienced a tragic loss just yet, but they're looking at life because maybe they're getting up in age a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you know
Mm-hmm.
just as well as I do, Miss Lynn, once we start getting up there, we have to begin to look at life in a different way, right?
Right.
Because we
So,
see the after effects. Yeah.
right. So I think one thing, and this is what in another group that I'm a part of, not specifically grief related, but if we think about the wording, and if we so I've had people to say, I don't care what happens to my things when I'm gone. You all do what you want to do with them. I'm not dealing with getting insurance or writing a will or whatever the case may be. But if we try to help people understand that doing this while you're still living, consider it the last gift that you will leave for your loved one. The
Hmm.
gift that, you know, especially if a person has never had to sit down with a mortician or with a death worker and plan a funeral, plan a whatever, they may have, whatever they have to do for their loved one after they pass away. One of the things that they don't want to have to do is figure out where's the money, where's the insurance policy, where are the
Right, right.
bank accounts. So if I do this for my family, then consider it, I'm leaving a gift for them. So they don't have to deal with this. They know where to go to get the book that has the passwords, that has the bank information, has the, some people are there even writing their own obituaries or writing out their wishes. And so I think if we maybe sometimes change the wording, and just say, Tony, you would not want your children to be trying to figure this out while they are trying to grieve, wrap their head around dad is no longer here. So I
Exactly.
think that, that would, I think that would help, because when that was said to me, well, when I heard it, I was like, that's good. That's good. because really, in essence, it is a gift. And that could serve as your last gift. Because, like you said, what happens? They fight over the money and they don't
Mhm.
know this and they don't know that. And it can be just such a really huge mess. So I think wording would be very helpful. And then those of us who have had the bad experience, this is what happened because mom, dad, sister, husband, wife did not leave things in order. So I had to take care of all of that in the first year. I didn't
Mhm.
even get to grieve. Now it's year 2 or 3. Now I can finally sit back and say, wow. So, again, I think it's being transparent, being vulnerable, sharing our experiences. And then when people um, buck you about it, say, well, why? Why would you not want to do it? And sometimes they may not tell you, but it may get the wheels turning. So
Mhm.
that's my take on it.
No, no, I love that. I want to piggyback off that, if I may, because you're right on track, right? And part of the Death Cafe is encouraging people to think outside the box, right?
Yes.
Think outside the box of one day you may not be here, and so you want to make sure that your transition and the transference of everything is done very smoothly. That's why it's written down, and it's you have a certified stamp on it. But you do have the option of going in there and changing things around, right? So
Yeah.
that's the whole purpose of it, right? So it does opens up the doors to be able to for people to live comfortably, understanding that everybody's going to be taken care of. And we've actually look, we've had teenagers come in because of the world that we live in, right? And do it and do the same thing.
Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
don't worry about it anymore. They said if this was to happen, I can always go in when I'm 21. I can always go in
Yeah.
when I'm 24, etc. Right? Add to it, take away from it, do whatever you please with it. That's the purpose of it. Is to make sure that things remain simple. And as a death doula, right? When a person is at the end of going into
Mhm.
transition, my job is to go and be with them and walk with them to make sure that they're comfortable. As a matter of fact, this is one of the questions that we ask people, and I will ask you the same question. If you could design your transition, what would it look like? And some examples. Maybe you want music played at by your bedside. Maybe you want to be surrounded by family. Maybe all of these things, because our
Mhm.
job is to make sure that your transition fits you, right?
Right, right.
And it may sound kind of weird to some people, but you know how many people become very uncomfortable when they're sitting in a hospital bed by themselves and know that there's somebody around, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if somebody notified you, say, hey, we're about 3 hours out. You may want to
Mhm.
come and be with the family. So we already
Mhm.
have this because we sit down with the family and actually plan this out. You know what I'm saying? What would you like to wear? Where would you like, would you like a eulogy?
Mhm.
What would you like? And we let people write out their own eulogies if they want,
Mhm.
right? Or they say,
Mhm.
no, I would like my friend to do this for me. I will bring
Mhm.
them into the next one. And they said, and it's such a beautiful thing to see people more open and vulnerable to understanding the importance of these what you may think is minor steps, but they have a bigger impact towards at the end. You know, so yeah, I love that. I want to talk about a little bit about your journey too, because you and I share a very deep loss together. And so I want to talk about this because I don't think a lot of people, too many I don't think too many people talk about this. Let's talk about the effects of child loss on an individual, so people can understand what it really does to you mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. It is, well, in my case, it was so sudden and so unexpected until I basically went numb because I try to think about it'll be 6 years on August 4th, and I try to think back sometimes and what was I feeling? Some people just fall apart. It's like crying and staying in the bed. But the word that keeps coming to me is it was just numb. It was so unbelievable. My son died by suicide. So it was just so unbelievable, so unexplainable, gut wrenching, like a punch in the stomach, like just knocked the wind out of me. And it had some physical connotations, not nothing bad. Excuse me. When I say nothing bad, I didn't, have a heart attack or anything like that. But emotionally, and still emotionally to this day, it takes a toll on your emotions because that's your child. First of all, you don't really think about, having to bury your child, and a young child at that. I mean, he was 30 and he was my only child. So, it's even and today, if I'm being transparent and honest, um, today is challenging for me because it's coming up to that day again soon, and so it's a challenging day, a challenging week. Right now emotionally because the questions come back. What did I miss? How did I fail my child? Did I fail my child? What should I have seen? What should I have noticed? What should I have asked? So it's it can be an emotional roller coaster, but I have to go back to what we talked about initially is when those feelings come, when those emotions show up, to give them their place. And I know tomorrow, the next day is going to be better. I know it may happen again, or especially over these next couple of weeks. It may happen again. It probably will happen again. But just like I say to you now, um, my admitting how I'm feeling now is one of the ways that I give space to those emotions. Many times people will say, well, not personally, but universally, well, how you doing? And we may be just sad to our core. Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. But I'm learning to say, nope, it's not a good day. It's not a good hour. I'm weepy. Whatever I'm feeling, I'm mad. I'm mad at my son today. And that is one of the ways that I cope, and I cope well. Um, so yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster sometimes though. It's just
Now,
heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
it really is, and and as you was talking about that, I was just because I just celebrated 9 years for my son, June 16th, the day after Father's Day, and and it was like a triple whammy. My mother's birthday was on Father's Day. Father's Day was the 15th.
Hmm.
My son passed away the day after. 9 years ago, almost exactly to the day. And I was just like, no, that deja vu came back.
Hmm.
But what I want to talk about a little bit about, because you said that you're going to be feeling it as the weeks and days get closer to that anniversary. And it was something that was said to me, and something that I also learned too. The body keeps score. And I was telling someone, they asked me how I was feeling. I said, man, I feel really, really off. Right, my energy was off, and I couldn't understand why. And no matter what I did, it was like the more and more I tried to ignore it, the more and more I became drained, to the point to where I was just like, oh my god. Then it dawned on me what was coming up. Do you ever get that? Do you ever feel your body keeping the score as you get? Because you could be going through it, you may actually forget about it, but it seems like the closer it
Hmm.
gets to the anniversary, you begin to feel it, and it catches you off guard,
It
right?
will catch you off guard. Yes, and I keep meaning to pick up that book that's titled "The Body Keeps Score." I've heard that that's a good book. But yes, because like you said, some days it's like, why am I feeling kind of sad? What's going on? And then if your eyes go to the clock, to the calendar, and it's like, oh, that's what it is. It's whatever date. I remember the first year, Tony. The first year, so my son went missing on July 29th. He was found on August 4th. He wasn't buried until August 13th because we had to take care of logistics of getting him back across the state lines. And for the first year, whenever those dates no, regardless of the month, whenever the 29th of a month, the 4th of a month, I I dealt with it. And then one day I didn't. And I was like, oh, whatever September 4th went by and it didn't bother me. But it sometimes circles back. So yes, I believe that the body keeps score. I really do.
Wow. Let's. I want to talk about something a little bit deeper, and things like that. And I want to give people a trigger warning as long as you're comfortable with it. I want to talk about the losses that people endure by suicide, and dive deeper into that so people can have a better understanding of what to look out for, right? Saying when their friends and things may be acting funny, um, and how can we better have the conversation to open up the doors for people who are struggling with suicidal ideation, who are having these deep, dark thoughts and things like that. So trigger warning, people. Miss Miss Lynn, what are your thoughts on that?
The first thing I'll say to your audience is do not blame yourself because people who are dealing with this mental trauma, mental anguish, they can hide it like all get out. We had no idea that our son was dealing with. His friends didn't know. So don't blame yourself. Now, it may be difficult to do, but work on not blaming yourself because you could have seen them the hour before. And if they didn't want you to know, you wouldn't have known. And that's something that I've had to deal with over these years. So don't blame yourself. Um, Secondly, people don't always exhibit signs. Again, they're good at masking and they don't always, you can't tell. But if you have a friend, a family member, associate who you've noticed that they're beginning to isolate, that they've stopped showing up for you, stopped showing up for family functions. If they're, if it's a coworker, for instance, if that was the person that was always sharply dressed, always the person on time, and now notice that they are coming in late, they're leaving early, um, being less and less interactive, their attire is different. Those could be some signs. If it's a person, say for instance, that you go out with, that you go to, I don't, whether it's out drinking or out just socializing with, and all of a sudden, if they are drinking more or just acting, you know, different, we've got to be in a space to be okay to say, "Hey, what's going on?" And usually they'll probably say nothing. No, what's going on? I know you better than this. You never come out of the house looking like this, or you never drink this much, or you never talk, whatever to come. And we've got to be vulnerable enough to approach. And also, we've got to be okay enough if they come at you differently, because if people are dealing with stuff, especially suicidal ideations or plans, then their mind is not. Um, I hate to use the word normal, but it's not normal. So they may come at you wrong. They may, say something bad to you, and we've got to be in a position to not take it personally. And if you're not able to do that, you may need to walk away, or you may need to, try to get some help. Like what do you call it? Running in, not interference, intervention. Um, so, but it's sometimes you don't know. You just don't know. I mean, I know of a young lady whose fiance, he took his life sitting right beside her on the sofa.
Jesus.
You know, um, so you don't always know. Um, but yeah, try not to blame yourself, and also know some of the stigma around, especially around suicide, is that the person was selfish. The person didn't love me because how could they have done this to me? Well, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, my own instance is my son loved me. He told me he loved me. He knew that he was loved. So I don't feel like he did this to me. That he, if he had had any other out, I think he would have taken it rather than to take his own life. But at the point that someone makes that final decision, and it's usually behind a temporary situation, their mind has transferred to another place. And I don't know the scientifics behind it. I'm not a therapist, so but I just know that something happens in the brain, and so psychologists, psychiatrists, scientists can explain what happens in the frontal lobe and all of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
If you don't mind, I would like to piggyback off of that a little bit. And I'm a person who used to, and still on occasion, right? I realized that it's a very, very dark place for me. So I had to really check myself and see who's around me, my environment. You know, I have to go deep down inside and see what is leading up to this moment.
hmm
Because the more and more I become more aware of it, it's I become more aware of my actions leading up to those moments, right? And what I realized was it's normally in conjunction with different anniversaries. Um,
yeah,
it's in conjunction. So, say for instance, if maybe I'm just in a depressive state today, because it happens, right? I'm not going to be
hmm
perfect every day, and it's the words that I begin to speak to myself, right? Because I can look at life, and I don't live a bad life, but I look at all of this, and I think sometimes to myself, like, what's the purpose of all of this? I'm only going to be leaving anyway. And then there's something that comes along me that says, yeah, why not do it now? And I go, hold on, I better get this together because because then it's of events leading up to more conversations that's making it okay for me to not only think the way that I do, but make the action of it even okay.
hmm
And I think I think as we still heal from the things that we've had to endure, that we are going to have moments like this. So I do look at it as maybe this is a normal part of the process that I have to go through as I heal. Now I could be
hmm
wrong. What are your thoughts on that, Miss Lynn?
I don't know. It probably several things may apply, and I think you mentioned earlier that as we mature, we look at life differently.
Mhm.
Um, we see things differently, and then when you've been through what we've been through with the loss of a child or the loss of someone very close, um, things don't things that maybe mattered, they don't matter anymore because we've been so up close and personal with how quickly life can be gone. This life that we know is gone. So
Yeah,
it very well may be a integral part of just living in this world. um,
yeah.
so
Hmm.
yeah.
I wanted to add to that too, because when we get into this field, I mean, it takes a very deep, empathetic person to get into this field.
Yeah.
They have the compassion, the strength, and the vulnerability to want to step with other people who have gone through something similar. And there's a silent strength that comes along with that, because when we walk alongside of those individuals that are actively grieving, um, we take a little bit of ourselves and put it into it as well, so we can better understand what they're going through. One of the challenges I see is that most people don't know how to separate the two when you get into that space. What what is some advice that you can give a person that is looking to do something like that, get into this field?
Um, someone just popped up on the screen and said journal, journal, journal,
Yes,
journaling,
yes.
journaling, writing, whether it's journal writing or writing songs, writing poetry, just writing, putting your feelings out on a piece of paper is something. I prefer a piece of paper, but some people use electronic ways of journaling. Um, Also, I mentioned earlier about practicing self love unapologetically. Knowing that it's okay to take care of you, to not compromise your own well being for anything or anybody else. That's a gift to you, and that is a gift to others too. Because especially in this grief work arena, if you don't take care of yourself, you will find yourself caught up in other people's trauma, other people's what their journey when you have your own going on. And so definitely taking care of, I'm plugging up because I'm about to lose my battery here. Sorry.
No worries, no
Um,
worries.
yeah, so writing, um, playing music, art, um, and then what I do is I take a break from grief. So we've had this conversation today. Now, if I do have one other thing to do is to finish up a chapter in a anthology that I'm doing that has some of my grief story in it. But that's all of the grief work that I'll do today because I have learned not to overwhelm myself with and especially with someone else's grief. So yeah, it's okay to take a break. It's okay, like you said earlier, recognize that I might be in a depressive state. I'm not depressed, but I'm in a kind of depressive state. So if you're going to get into this work, the empathy, you got to be empathetic, a good listener. You got to be a good listener. Um, Realizing, recognizing everybody's journey is different. Recognizing that you're not going to agree with how you're not going to agree always with how someone is handling their particular grief. Um, one of the big things now is people wanting to connect. I don't even know how to say it, like in the afterlife. They want to connect with their person through a medium or something like that. You may not agree with how they desire, but um, so you're going to run into people like that have different thoughts than you. There are going to be some people that's mad at God. There are going to be some people that gravitate closer to God. So you almost have to be, not almost, you have to have an open mind, but at the same time you have to protect your own boundaries. And that is one of the reasons that I like to have like a quick conversation before I begin to work with somebody or before I even come to speak to somebody's group. Because if my spirit or my mission don't line up, then I'm okay now. Not always, but I'm okay now, Tony, to say, I don't think I'm the person for you, but I'm going to help you find the person that may be able to help you better, and I'm okay with doing that. I'm okay with doing that.
You
So
know what? That's the one thing that I'm glad to see have changed since I've been in this field. I'm glad to see people admitting that they may not be capable to help someone else, and being willing to give
yeah.
them the necessary help that they need. I think that builds a strong rapport, but also opens up the doors for people to collaborate and network, right? Like, oh, you did this for me. I have somebody that may be good for you. And then you kind of branch out. I've always looked at things like that, like how can we grow and be bigger and have the impact that we need to have in this world, especially with the way that it's going. Because I feel, that we are playing a big role in what's to come. Those who are very skilled in the different areas, we're popping up in cities all over the United States, all over the world. There's people that come in with brand new knowledge and brand new ideas
Hmm.
that, that could change the trajectory of how we begin to move as a human race, right? Through this deep connection called grief. And it's looking at the similarities across the board and go, wow, this person may not look at me, but we share a similar pain. And we get to know this
Yeah.
individual. Because
Oh, definitely.
yeah, yeah. So because I'm always telling people together we're stronger. If we
Yeah.
learn how to move together, if we learn how to operate within our own individual strengths, we can do a lot in this field, and we can begin to turn things around, like addiction and mental health. We can turn
Hmm.
things around, like the losses that we are experiencing, the extreme losses that we're experiencing through
Hmm.
suicide, right, and things like that, just by education and awareness. And you've written two books as well. Well, or you've written a couple books, right?
I've written. I've written one. My journal. I created that and published that. But the other one is an anthology. The first book is an anthology. So I was one of 10 women that wrote a story in this book, and I wrote my story about my grief journey up to that point, which was about 3 years in at that time.
Okay, okay. And do you have a copy so you can show people?
Yeah, I don't know if you. Oh, yeah, I'm not blurred sometimes. Yeah, so can you see this? It's called
I
Prepare for
can.
Purpose.
Kind of bring it down just a little bit. Just there you go. Prepare for
Oh,
purpose. There you go. That light was
Prepare for
shining on it.
Purpose. Yeah,
And
this is
where
the
can people
end.
find that?
This one I'll have to give you and I apologize that I didn't send you my links, but you can get it off my website, which is www.destined to thrive uh, griefcoaching.com.
All right, all
Destined
right.
to Thrive, griefcoaching.com. So you can get it off my website. And then the second one, my solo project is a journal that I created and published in memory of my son. And this one is on Amazon and on my website.
Okay.
And it's a journal and memory book. And the prompts and the quotes are geared toward those who have experienced a suicide loss.
I love that. I love that. People go check
Yeah.
that out. A couple more questions for you because I know you're a busy lady today, and so my next question would be, how can people find you?
Can find me on Instagram at Grief Coach Lynn, on Facebook and LinkedIn as Lynn Lewis, as well as on Facebook under Destined to Thrive. And also, I still use email at destined to thrive at outlook.com. And did I leave anything out? Oh, the website, destined to thrive.com. So yeah, that's how you can reach me.
Okay. And my next question would be, if Miss Lynn had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, my superpower is that nobody else, Tony, has to join this club that you and I are in, that we've had to bury a child. That's my superpower.
I
We
would love that.
club doors closed. No more, no more, no one else can come in. That's definitely my
Mm.
superpower. We don't
You
want
know,
you
I want
here.
we don't.
We
We
don't
definitely
want
don't
you
want
here.
you here, right? We must. We might. Hey, along with a few other clubs, we're like we're sitting back going, no, we really don't want you here. Go
Nope.
somewhere else. Go over to the next ones. I think that'll be a lot more suitable for you.
Nope.
But we never
Mm-mm.
wish that. We never wish this on anyone.
Oh my
You know.
goodness.
It stays with you. It's a scar that's going to continue to be open and closed for the rest of your life. You just
Hmm.
learn to deal with the opening and closeness of it over
That's
time.
right. That's right.
Through healing and understanding, forgiveness and patience and
Yeah.
grace. And
And if I
so,
could, I'm
yeah,
sorry, and if I could say to your audience, I do like 15 minute complimentary chats. So you can use calendly.com/destined to thrive to schedule a short conversation, a chat with me. That's the calendly.com/destined to thrive. Would love to hear from you just to have a chat and a cup of tea.
Most definitely. And we already talked about that. We're going to have a cup of tea at a virtual meet just to have a conversation. And, because again, I miss those days. I love being able to do things like that. One more question for you before I let you go, Miss Lynn. If you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
Breathe,
Mhm.
breathe, because we wake up with our chatterbox going, what needs to be done, what we forgot to do, what we've got to do. We go to bed with the chatterbox going. Um, so I say to everyone, just breathe. And when we breathe, it forces us to come into to be present. Breathe, be present, check in with yourself. Where are your shoulders? Are they up to your ears? Are they where they're supposed to be? Are you breathing? Check your breath, but just breathe. Just take the time to breathe. You deserve that moment to breathe.
I love that. I love that. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. Miss Lynn, thank you for being on the show, sharing your knowledge and your journey, as well as your amazing work. And so, for everyone else who have been tuning in, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for joining in the chats and conversing with one another. I saw a lot of big people out there. My man Q out there. My man IKS out there. Mr. Tesla 365, Jake. Thank you guys for tuning in, man. That's really really big, And we're gonna keep bringing this to you guys. We got another one coming every tomorrow, so tune in for that as well. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to IKS and Q. We have a podcast coming out called a show coming out called Connect Work. We're going to be letting people know when that's coming out, so you'll be able to tune in that as well. All right. And with that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time, do me a favor, head on over to that YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And most importantly, maybe these conversations aren't for you just yet, but maybe you know somebody who can benefit from the conversations that we have. Do me a favor, share this along with them. Let them know that there's people out here that are willing to walk with them, help them heal, but also just to share that space with them so they can be seen, heard, and validated as they begin to go along this grief journey. Miss Lynn, thank you again. For everyone else, we're going to see you guys in the next one. You guys have an amazing day. And as always, if you're not out there doing it, go out there and make memories with people that you love, because tomorrow's not promised. All right? We are out. We love
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Peace.